Hello, I'm back popping in with another inspiration. I'm gonna try to make this quick because I don't know how much storage I have on this device. But I wanted to tap in with a few insights that, in furthering some comments that commentary I've offered around red flags or warning indications, and then which can be like behaviors, symbols, gestures, decisions within like maybe speech and mannerism, but then also tie in a little bit with sobriety on this that's not entirely different. And then what I want to say is that another red flag that this really may go overlooked, but I think in your life, each time that you've experienced this, you're on a deeper level. You didn't overlook it. You can really feel it, but it is consciously we overlook it quite a bit. And if you can imagine like cats or like tigers, like when they're babies, and they're playing with, like, maybe they're like harassing a small creature or a turtle, or maybe their parent, their guardian has actually won some type of kill or morsel, and then before the young cub will actually consume or eat their share, they'll actually like play with it. And what they're doing is whatever we do in life, good or bad, it requires practice. So on a very that's like a very simple scale, but those little, the way that tiger is playing with that morsel, that's gonna actually amount to them sinking their teeth into the throat of a living creature that has just ran for its life and is now struggling for its last breaths in choking upon its own blood. That's how far those little gestures of a cub playing with a turtle will amount to, and how, if you can imagine how almost innocent or unassuming that looks like when it's playing with the turtle, and then how dire and traumatic that looks when it's actually sinking its teeth into something. And I'm not passing judgment on any of that, because that's part of the processes of life, and how real life is, and what this universe is about and is. But in the people in your life that have really done you damage or hurt you, I would suggest that they've also done these little mocking and I'm not saying humorously, but they've done these little mock trials of practices of the very behaviors and gestures and deeds that could be a really that could really be your that could actually be your death. So, like, if you could imagine, like, and then a lot of times the lines between friend and foe, loved one, foe, relative, foe, these are very, very arbitrary and interchangeable lines that are not nearly as fixed or real as we'd like to think. So I think the author of the 48 Laws of Power, Robert Greene, somewhere in there, in one of his books, he has several books, one about seduction, one about strategies of war, one about power, one about different levels of like success and, I think, mastery, then another one on human behavior. So he has a canon of work, and there's incredible insight and all that. But in one of those, he actually expresses that a friend can be turned into a foe just as easily as a foe can be turned into a friend. And a lot of that is it's quite arbitrary. I'd say many times it might go over the lines of money would be maybe a threshold that can put someone between friend and foe quite easily. And then on a deeper level, when it gets more personal, then relationships and love interests can be similar. But really, a lot of times, like, maybe money can be the threshold that brings out the propensities for of animosity that we have within each other, but also the camaraderie that we have in each other that can be intermingled as time plays out. So what I want to say is that if you can imagine, like, maybe someone from like a street background, and heaven forbid, I offer respect to anyone involved in rough lifestyles that might require brotherhood, and so I don't mean to pass judgment on that, and then but I also I commend peace and love as much as we can amount to that. But it takes work for all of us to find some kind of peace and love and sometimes the very people who who have been our brothers at one point, they can be our foes, or they can be so much of our brothers that they still yet obstruct us when we're being called to a higher purpose or a destiny that's different than what we've been before. But all I meant to say is that in like if you take like brothers in arms, or like brothers in like in the streets, which is another version of that, sometimes they can actually be the one that can deal a person their fate. The very people who are, there's a saying, I think there's a line in Biggie Smalls. He once said, it's the ones that smoke blunts with you, now they want to grab the guns and come and get you. And there's a lot of truth in what I think in what he said in that. And if you can imagine, you know, I think there have, at different times in human history, past and present, there have actually been people that have met their death or their demise by a person that was once their brother or comrade or associate of some kind. And that could be of the same sex or a different sex. It could be a family member, what have you. But I would imagine that if a person has once been brothers in arms with a person, and then through whatever set of circumstance that brother of theirs actually does either take their life or make an attempt on that life, at some point in their interaction, when they were bantering and joking around or just being brothers, that person might have actually brandished a weapon and like pointed at them like laughing like ha ha ha, and, you know, like, and actually like pointed a weapon at them, or like done something in a similar vein where they're actually it's like this like a mock trial of what will actually amount to a very heinous deed. And it's on all walks of life. And that's just an example of what I mean, of that the people around us, or that we know, that we may be familiar with or that we may not, a lot of times they're working up to the actual what they really mean to us in our destiny. They're as we're experiencing life together, which is still part of our destiny, they're expressing what's going to amount to what they really are to us. And then, like, maybe a more sophisticated way of recognizing that would be like, say you have a and so another thing that what I want to say is that anytime you see a weapon that you didn't anytime that you see a weapon at all, it's significant, and it has a great foreboding, whether you own that weapon, whether that weapon has nothing to do with you. Anytime you see a weapon, it's serious. And then I would say anytime you place your hand on a weapon, that's even more serious in how you're affecting your subconscious mind and what that can amount to in your reality, because what we're putting into our subconscious mind is known to furnish what we later then see and experience. So maybe you could say that all the things that we experience in our waking consciousness, at some point we had interface or experienced them before that on a subliminal level, before they become liminal. So it's the same with a weapon, where all I mean to say is that anytime you see a weapon for any reason, that's very significant, and I would say it's not auspicious when you see one. But a weapon doesn't always have to look like a weapon, and gunshots don't have to always sound like fireworks to yet be effective and deadly. So I want to say that when you, like, say you're in high school, right, and you have a crush on someone, and then like all of a sudden you see like a cell phone of theirs, or you see a cell phone in a very like a very poignant way. Like if you have feelings for a person and you really like a person, and then you see like their cell phone, like that cell phone, it registers to you somehow, like on your subconscious level, because there's something like if you could imagine like a cool looking, or like even like a sexy looking cell phone that actually belongs to someone that you're interested in or that you like, that's a very that's a very significant image. But yet it can also be almost similar to like seeing a weapon, because if you really like someone and then somehow their cellular their phone becomes very prominent in your awareness, like you weren't looking to see them in their phone, but you somehow see their phone prominently in your experience, and you couldn't have otherwise avoided it in that interaction. that actually that could be like somewhat similar to a weapon appearing in your experience. And at one point that for people have their life, that's none of our business really, but if you actually have feelings for a person, that might be the same very cell phone that is somehow used in whatever interaction amounts to breaking your heart, and when your heart is later broken. But it had appeared in your experience peripherally yet prominently as factoring as a sign and a foreboding. So I want to say that's like somewhat similar to like seeing a weapon in your experience, where that a weapon became prominent in your awareness. It had presented itself in front of you, and you had yet time to adjust to that and make changes, but you may have ignored it or even fancied it, and then indirectly roundabout it came around all the way back around to your undoing. So these are the same. It's the same with a weapon appearing in your experience, but also little behaviors of like mocking of what will actually lead up to like a heinous deed. Or like say you had some friends and they're joking about like doing something behind your back with your old lady while you yet don't even have a girlfriend, and then days, months, weeks, years down the line, you actually do have a girlfriend, and they actually do try some business in your backyard. It had been foreboded and practiced in your presence on some degree. So that's a more maybe like a subtle red flag that we can experience. But then the last thing I wanted to say with this is and it's a little bit different, but like I was like talking about sobriety, and it's related to like these different shots that are being taken at us. So I would say that all of us have shots that are being taken at us, or at least prepared for us in our goings on, that don't have to look anything like fireworks, but yet they're deadly and effective. As I speak, I probably have different advertisers, if not creditors, who are interested in me and are fathoming me and are discussing me and making plans with whatever information they may or may not have about me that can amount to shots that are being taken at me and can affect me as significantly and permanently, maybe not as quickly as an actual a weapon or a projectile that had been curated with thoughts of me in mind. Just to give you an example, so the incredible athlete and mixed martial artist Jorge Masvidal had a very interesting interview on the Joe Rogan podcast several years back. I think at least two, and it was the first of which when he was preparing in that interview to face another fighter named Ben Askren, and that became a famous and vivid viral highlight where he had actually knocked out that fighter with his knee in awesome fashion, and had actually he had done so intentionally. He had practiced that very move, and there's footage of that move, and he had the intent of doing that. And then if you go back to like maybe like 8 months prior to that bout, that had been like in the summer of I think 19, and he went to success and prominence with that. There was a backstory to that where he had actually had an epiphany and a rebirth around an experience in the South America on like a reality television show where he was sequestered from access to digital information or to digital devices to whatever degree, and it actually those experiences amounted to a shift in his life where he had a rebirth, so to speak, that transitioned into him becoming having these viral moments of success that were not, they might seem like good fortune, but if you look at his backstory, they were part of a change in him, an emotion in him, but also diligent practice and work. And in this episode with Joe Rogan, he actually was in the process of coming out of that rebirth and then moving into what would be some very pivotal moments in success in his career. But he in that interview, you can see where he's at as a man, as a person, and as an athlete, and some of his ways of approaching work and practice. And he also makes references to different people who were mentoring him at that time. So it's a very profound interview. If you can find Jorge Masvidal with Joe Rogan, any of those interviews, but especially that first one. And in there's one point where he was talking about the reality of training. Training is one thing, But then when you start to cut weight, because I think different combat athletes, like such as wrestlers and mixed martial artists and athletes, they have to engage at a certain weight level, because weight is a very prominent factor and advantage in a physical combat when there's an even match, or when people have an even capacity and training, their weight can really play out as a significant and decisive advantage. So that's adjusted for and factored for in combat athletes of different kinds, and they're obliged and required to enter the bout at a similar exact weight to account just to diminish the advantage that would be there. He was talking about that weight cutting, is actually the trainer of another incredible athlete, Justin Gaethje. His trainer is equally is maybe as great of a trainer as the trainer that Joe Rogan had. They both had incredible trainers, but probably different approaches. And that trainer of Justin Gaethje, he's also involved in different safety measures around the sport, and I think he's actually worked on some of the mitting and the gloves that actually looks. I wear these winter gloves because I do work that requires me to access smart devices, but yeah, it's still somewhat warm and it has that flap, so it actually looks a little bit like those UFC gloves. And he's actually done work towards engineering those gloves. To make changes to the sport, because I think they have been involved in different times when people have been blundered in their eyes by people's fingers, and it has to do with the dynamics of those gloves. But he also mentioned once that the weight cutting in combat sports is actually the more deadly part of the sport, beyond the actual combat, because when you are playing with your food intake, your diet, your water intake, your sleep arbitrarily, and you are approaching your human body with preconceived notions and metrics of what is health and what is an ideal weight. You're somehow getting outside of the actual balances of nature and in your environment that you exist within, and you're form fitting, and you are overriding that, similar to what a lot of health professionals do in general with our bodies, where they have an arbitrary man-made concept of where we should be, and then they overlay our actual organic body that exists within nature to reach this objective. And sometimes there could be maybe strengths that come with that, like what different athletes do, but I don't know if it's healthy or natural. And so he points that out as that this weight cutting is very deadly. But Jorge Masvidal had, before he ever said that comment a few years back, Jorge Masvidal was talking about training, like I think like maybe in a desert near about it to enter a bout. And what he mentions is that when you sustain a blow in practice under normal circumstances, that's one thing. But then when you're actually cutting weight or water, you take a blow, it doesn't have to be as hard. It rocks you. I can't speak with experience, but he's explaining that it rocks you as you have not been rocked before, and on a way deeper level, because of what you're doing with your diet in that point. So what I wanted to take that a step back into sobriety is that we have these shots that are going on around us all the time by friends, relatives, co-workers, people we don't know, people that we just all kinds of people have all kinds of stuff prepared for us. And we by grace, I think we a lot of these shots may miss us because most people are a bad shot, if we're being honest, but that doesn't mean they can't take us out with a shot, and that some of these shots don't actually land at some point, because if you take enough shots, some of them are going to land. And I would say that if you are indulging in substances like say like alcohol or something else, and then you get hit with one of these shots, that's going to rock your world way different and potentially take you out, where if you had been sober, you might have avoided that or sustained that shot much differently. So I would say if you're alive and listening to this, there have been shots taken at you at different times in your life, and you probably even sustained some of those shots. And I would say that your ability to be here and witness this might have been a function of your level of sobriety, even while you may have been partaking of a lifestyle or with substances. Whatever amount of sobriety you actually did have in your life, because we can still have a level of sobriety even while we're engaged with substances. I would say that that sobriety, whatever prudence or sobriety you had, might be how you sustained and overcome some of those deadly shots taken at you. So just to be aware of that, in that one of the advantages of sobriety is that we can come past a very difficult and hard, trying times in our life that might have actually succeeded in taking us out if we had been just a little bit off our square on a substance or something. So this is just some more insight into red flags and the different weapons and different things that exist around us that present themselves before they actually make their move on us. It's just another thing in recognizing when we're dealing with people. So I hope this can be of benefit to someone, and I offer this with respect and esteem for people of all lifestyles. The struggle is real, love is real, but love is the only thing that is love is the greatest thing before, within, and beyond the trial. So show mercy when you have it in your hand to do so. And someone actually showed mercy to me this morning in a very unique way that meant something to me. And I thank that person for that. And it's real when we need it and when it happens. So peace.